Good morning. It's very nice to be here in beautiful Bandon, rainy Bandon. And we do need the rain, I know that, so.
We get sunshine.
But it was beautiful yesterday. Love that. It's really an honor to be here to talk to you about our project in Cottage Grove, the tiny homes. And we do thank the Presbyterian women for the generous grant of, like Donna said, $100,000. Both Cynthia and I are members of the Cottage Village Coalition, a group of concerned individuals in the Cottage Grove area who, in collaboration with Square One Villages of Eugene, are working together to craft a permanent solution to homelessness. Our mission is to advance self-sufficiency and human dignity by providing safe, stable, well-designed tiny homes in a village setting for those who most need them. And the key is in a village setting, because this is a community of people. And it's very different, and I think you'll probably see more of this in the future. The background on how the coalition got started, it really was in the halls of the First Presbyterian Church in Cottage Grove. Cynthia and I are both members of the Earth and Social Justice Committee, and we had to come up with we wanted to come up with some topics to talk to the congregation at our coffee hour after the service. And the topic of homelessness surfaced very quickly, and it became apparent that we really needed to do some research and really find out what's going on in Cottage Grove. You read things in the paper, more so now than even 2 years ago, but we did some outreach. We talked with social workers, mental health workers, community sharing, and other religious groups in Cottage Grove. We contacted a woman who worked at a soup kitchen and prepared meals on a weekly basis for those that didn't have any food. And we spoke to homeless individuals and listened to their ideas. We also attended city council meetings and gave presentations, and invited our mayor to join us when we were just a work group. We weren't a coalition, we were just a work group in the very beginning, and that was in January of 2016. And by February, we realized we have a core group of dedicated people that want to not just talk about homelessness, we want to do something about it. So we formed the Cottage Village Coalition in February of 2016. Initially, when we were the committee, or core group of people without the coalition, our goal was to provide housing for people that were homeless, right then and there, right now. And we realized we looked into the use of Conestoga huts and tents and in church parking lots and on city property, and unfortunately, the city ordinances wouldn't allow us to use Conestoga huts. And they are temporary shelters, but much needed. And we moved on. Tent camping on city property was not an option, and car camping wasn't going to work either. We really didn't have any money to do anything. And the one thing we did have was beds for freezing nights, and that's when the temperatures get 30 degrees or below, and then there's shelter in the Presbyterian Church and the Catholic Church. But you know how cold it can be in Western Oregon when the temps are in the 40s and 50s and it's raining and windy, and how relieved you might be to get out of the rain in just a few hours. Imagine trying to live in this weather day in and day out, not knowing where you're going to be sleeping or where you're going to get your next meal. So it's not surprising that homeless people not always can take advantage of job training, counseling. They're worried about their basic needs, shelter. And some of the research suggests that before any of this can happen, any kind of counseling, going to school, job training, people need basic shelter. So while researching options for nonprofit status, we contacted Dan Bryant, pastor of First Christian Church in Eugene. and the executive director of Square One Villages, and we'll call it SOV. SOV has proven success and had proven success in building tiny homes for homeless and low-income individuals and families in Eugene. Opportunity Village was completed in 2015, and they were then, in 2016, working on Emerald Village. They now have many houses built, and like Donna said, we got to visit those. A group of 75 of us, I think it was, that visited Emerald Village. So CVC, Cottage Village Coalition, was looking for an umbrella nonprofit organization, and SOV was looking to create a toolkit for building tiny homes in a rural community. It was a great opportunity for us both to collaborate, and by June 2016, we were officially under the umbrella of SOV. And now our structure is, the coalition is a subcommittee, basically, of SOV. SOV owns the land in Cottage Grove, we manage it. And we have subcommittees in our group, and it's finance, which includes grants and events, site committee, which is the maintenance of the site, and the development of the site, and outreach to contact volunteers, which are always needed. So what we learned was collaboration is key. We really needed to reach out, and we did. We reached out to all the various civic organizations, and like I said, city officials and religious groups. And I don't think this issue is unique to Cottage Grove. And when I look in your bulletin there, I see that you're handing food out to people that are in need. There's bags that you have, and looking at some of the newspaper articles about homelessness in Coos Bay and North Bend and Bandon. And so it's not a unique situation. Well, things you can do. Open your doors and provide a meeting place for people to discuss issues. We provided a welcoming environment. We have meetings every week at the Presbyterian Church in Cottage Grove. We embrace the opportunity to work with diverse people. Get political. And I know, and I'm not going to say too much about that, but we need people that want to help the mass population, the lower 99%, let's say. And excuse me, I'm looking at my notes here. Okay. For the homeless and potentially homeless and the shelter poor, living at the lower depths of affordability, the very existence of a home is central to their struggle to grasp the edges of physiological and psychological survival. I just have a few research statistics to share with you. According to the Eviction Lab at Princeton University, 2.3 million people are affected by eviction every year. That is 6,300 every day, or 263 every hour of every day, which means that 4.375 are being evicted. People are being evicted every second in America. Income has been flat for nearly 20 years, but since 1995 there's been a 70% increase in housing costs. And today, the average age of a homeless person in America is 9 years old. And one of the ironies of homelessness is that it actually costs more to leave someone who is chronically homeless on the streets than to provide them housing. A 2014 study in 3 central Florida counties found that they were spending over $31,000 per year per individual on 1,577 individuals, whereas the cost to house them would be just over $10,000. Meanwhile, instead of providing shelter for the unhoused, we spend public dollars to put up barriers wherever the unhoused go to find relief from living outdoors. We are making places increasingly off limits, and then we wonder why we have so many homeless in our public squares. So when we fence off the places where people seek shelter, where do we think they're going to go? They have to sleep somewhere. I have statistics for Cottage Grove, but I think I'll just skip that because I think you're aware of the issue, and I think the issues are probably the same here. But people on fixed or lower, extremely low income are unable to find housing or at risk of losing what they have. One unforeseen economic or health crisis could cause them to become homeless. To compound the situation, it's extremely difficult to find housing, and even more so affordable housing. In Cottage Grove, the vacancy rate is less than 1%. And from reading something in the bulletin here, it sounds like someone is looking for affordable housing here, or a place to buy and looking to rent right now. And I'm wondering how long it might take in Bandon to actually secure a house. Public programs aimed at addressing housing affordability are direly insufficient. Lane County's HUD Section 8 waiting list was open for just 1 week in 2015. This is in Cottage Grove. There was a 5-year wait for one-bedroom subsidized housing. Only 1 in 4 households eligible for housing vouchers received them, and waiting lists in most cities are closed or years long. The private market does not produce enough affordable housing, especially for deeply poor families. As a result, the number of households paying too much for rent is at historic levels. And just the other week, Ben Carson, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, proposed to triple rents on low-income families because it is currently unstable. And this will hurt single mothers most of all with children. So those with the least ability to pay carry the greatest burden associated with housing. I think now I will turn it over to Cynthia Sharp, and she will provide some other insights into our project. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning. My text for this presentation is from the Gospel of Oz. There is no place like home, no place like home, no place like home, no place like home. Think about the importance of your home, just having a place to be where you are always welcome, where you know you belong, and what it would be like if you lost your home. From the earliest of times to the present, we have built for ourselves on every continent of the earth, out of whatever material was at hand, providing a place to be where we could seek safety from the elements, where we could sleep, keep our belongings, raise our families, and make our living. From the Declaration of Independence, we are supposed to be guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Simply put, homelessness is a justice issue. There is often a stigma and shame that comes with being homeless. But the real shame is that we've made it nearly impossible for the poorest of the poor to live with any dignity among us. Homelessness is not just a problem for the unhoused. It has an impact on all of us. As many as a third of those living on the streets today are there because of a mental health issue. Who among us would really want to blame the mentally ill for a condition into which they were born, or which was the result of a traumatic injury? That county jails today are the #1 provider of mental health services in most communities is not an indictment of the mentally ill. It is an indictment on society. I ask you, who is more guilty, the mentally ill in our jails or those who create the system with too few alternatives that give them no choice but to live on our streets? Drug and alcohol addictions are another very common ailment among the homeless. While many have considered addiction a moral failure, for decades, the medical community has treated it as an ailment requiring treatment. Only such a solution will help the individual as well as the society. Why then do we expect addicts to magically quit their addictions before we will provide access to housing? Then there are those who are homeless simply because of their poverty, economic refugees who cannot afford the cost of housing in today's market. 11 million Americans are at risk of becoming homeless for no other reason than they cannot afford their rent. As a beginning solution, we decided that as a first step in providing housing as quickly as possible to a low-income family, the CVC, Cottage Village Coalition, site committee cleaned up our house and yard on our property. We had secured 1.2 acres with a 100-year-old house, a large workshop, and okay, I think we have some pictures. There's the workshop and the acreage. Here's our house. The house has now been totally rehabbed, and we have a family of 6 living in the house under Section 8. The grant writing committee has pursued a number of avenues and participated in state-sponsored housing meetings and webinars, learning about funding opportunities for Cottage Village. Believe me, that is a big problem. I'm on the grant committee. In the process, other housing providers have learned of the project and its needs. In approaching the state of Oregon's Energy Trust, we learned that a tiny house village is not eligible for funding because the housing units are detached, not attached. The wording from the state is set for apartments where the units are attached. We are working with the state to change that wording so that we will be eligible to get their grants and loans. The director of the state project has said that we are cutting edge and that the legislation has not considered the correct wording. So that's one of our campaigns right now. Let's see. We have found that our tiny house village would be eligible for some of the grants and loans. And we have done an extensive site checklist, and it was a volume, a 3-inch binder completely filled with maps, zoning information, wetland impact considerations, drainage and soil reports, and other considerations. And we did pass the state inspection, so we do have the eligibility if we get our wording changed to detached units. We also submitted or considered a home grant application, and we found that we really couldn't go for that one. We have met with Homes for Good, which is the new name for HUD. We have enthusiasm from them for our project. We are preparing to meet with each of 10 lumber companies to ask for in-kind donations of the lumber. That cut the cost about 50% for Emerald Village by getting the in-kind donations. Susan is heading up that project. And our goal is to raise $200,000 to cover the site development costs. The $100,000 loan from, or the grant from the Presbyterian Women is for construction, so we have to do the $200,000 for the infrastructure first. Then we will start our actual construction, hopefully by the end of the year. We've raised $200,000 from Iowa Memorial, which was the purchase of the land, over $1,500 from individual donations in town, $5,000 from Banner Bank, $2,000 from a fundraising dinner, and a $4,200 grant from Ford Family Foundation. And we've hired an experienced professional to set up our capital campaign. The city has allotted us so far $15,000 to go against the fees, and we have a estimated $80,000 pledged for the renovation of the workshop into a community center. We have submitted grants for $250,000 to Fannie Mae, a $100,000 grant to Edwards Mother Earth Foundation, and we have our Homes for Good application for project-based Section 8 submitted, and it looks like we're getting approval on that one. We are also planning to go for a Collins Foundation grant, Wells Fargo, and LIFT, which is Local Innovation and Fast Track through the housing. But that one we cannot submit until the fall. Our planned fundraising activities in town are a covered bridge poker run, a GoFundMe video, which the high school is doing, and it looks like it's going to be quite a bit of fun, and a supporter brunch at the church to invite supporters to reignite community interest and increase participation. There's a high level of commitment on the part of our Cottage Grove group and from Square One Villages, and our goals are the same. We are going for creation of a self-governing tiny home community, providing quality, safe, and affordable housing for people with low and very low incomes. We're exploring multiple pathways to achieve the needed funding for the project. And as a result of the February issue of the Presbyterian Women magazine, Cottage Village has given is giving two presentations, one in Eugene to the Presbyterian women and today. And we also have inquiries for more information from the Presbyterian women at First Presbyterian Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Calvary Presbyterian Church in Riverside. You can find out more on our website, www.squareonevillages.org, where each of our projects are described. And we have information on the rural what do we call it?
Information on the website.
Yeah, information on the website.
On the rural toolkit.
Yeah, the rural toolkit. I'm sorry, I forgot the word toolkit. Okay. We'll be very glad to answer any questions at coffee hour. And we thank the Presbyterian women, and I do remember particularly my 16th birthday and putting the 16 pennies in for the birthday offering in front of the congregation and all of the remarks that were made.